Hey, everybody. Welcome to the Practical Founders Podcast, where every week we hear an amazing story from a serious founder who built a valuable software company and did it without big funding. I'm your host, Greg Head, and this week my guest is Paul Van Metre, the co-founder and still an executive leader of ProShop. ProShop is an ERP, enterprise resource planning, the whole business management software for advanced machine shops here in the United States and Canada. Paul and his co-founders created a sophisticated machine shop business and automated with software for almost 20 years before selling that business to focus on the software that they created that was already helping other peer machine shops in their industry. It's a big business, and they just took on some major investment, and they're becoming a leader in the space. So this is a vertical industry software that grew out of one of the industry companies itself. And we're live with Paul Van Metre, the co-founder and one of the key leaders of ProShop ERP. Welcome to the Practical Founders Podcast.
Hey, Greg. Nice
Paul.
to be here. Appreciate you having me on. Looking forward to it.
Thank you. A really interesting story. It's one of those software businesses that came out of your previous business. You were using the software to run your business, and it's called ProShop. Why don't we just start with what is ProShop and where is the business these days?
Yeah, sure. So ProShop is basically it's software that runs a precision manufacturing company, from the front end of quoting projects to the back end of sending out invoices and everything in between, in a way that hasn't been done before in our industry. So we're pretty passionate about it, and we started building it, like you said, for ourselves, for our own machine shop that we started right out of college in 97. We started building ProShop around 2000. And
when did ProShop start as its own company? I know you had the previous machine shop company that used the software, but when did ProShop start as a company, and how big is it now?
There's two answers to that. We took our first software customer on in 2009, but we ran our machine shop for another 5 years beyond that. So it was really just a side thing, like one or two customers, literally. So it wasn't until 2016 that we turned on a website and actually started to try to sell ProShop to the market.
And you had already sold your ProCNC business, your machine
We sold
shop.
the manufacturing company in 2014, and I had a year transition I had to stay on. And then we wanted to build a few more software tools and things. So early 2016 is when we launched ProShop to the world. So there were four of us that moved from the machine shop, my three founders and one employee, or my two founders, three of us and one employee. And today we're about 95 people or so, I believe, and growing 40% year over year, north of 10 million in ARR. So it's been a very fun ride the last 6 years.
And you started out, let's say, self-funded or bootstrapped, right? You got the software, which had already had years of development and investment inside your company. Then you guys hung out and got your first customers and lived on customer revenue, customer funding for a little while.
We did.
Yeah.
And I misspoke. I said 6. It's now been 8. Time flies. But yeah, we started with, maybe 300,000 in just funding when we sold the company. The founders just personally invested a little bit. So we had a little bit to build some infrastructure and start running an office and stuff like that. But yeah, we were largely just, bootstrapped and self-funded for up until the middle of last year, middle of 2023, when we did do a deal with Mainsail. And we were growing, strongly, able to, COVID was actually a great time for us. Quite honestly, we went into COVID with about, I think, 24 employees and came out with about 75. So it was good for manufacturing because all those essential industries that still needed to keep making things. And I think a lot of manufacturers realized that if they're doing things the old way on paper and spreadsheets, that wasn't going to work as well in sort of this new environment where people have to work remotely and do other things like that.
So you raised some funding from a growth equity provider, Mainsail,
yes,
a funder, and their growth equity is very practical. We'll talk about your funding here. It's not big shoot the moon VC. It's not private equity, right?
Correct.
Take a majority of your company and put you through the grinder kind of thing. This is a very practical. We've got it this far, and you could see growing the business steadily for another X years. And they normally say 3 to 5X at 3 to 5 years. And and they let you take a little money off the table, and they don't want you to go from frugal and efficient to crazy. One step, they want you to step up just nicely and help you there. That's been a year now since that. Can you look back and say things are still going well? And
yeah,
partnership?
It was June last year, so not quite a year, but
right.
We're getting there. Yeah, it has been a fantastic partnership. I think Mainsail really has been true to sort of the persona they presented to us, and the references, all the back channel references, quite honestly, that we did. We did a very thorough process. We managed it ourselves, to be honest, but we had, I think, 4 or 5, down to LOIs at the end, and decided ultimately on Mainsail. But yeah, they've been exactly who they said they were going to be. And, their niche, of course, is niche ERP products. So it could not be, from bootstrapped founder-led companies. Like, we checked all 3 of those boxes. Our cohorts in their other portfolio companies are niche ERPs of things like heavy duty truck repair, linen companies, law firms, flight schools, liquid waste management, aka porta potties.
Yeah.
So these are, roofing and construction. So very much, niche businesses, often serving blue collar industries like we do. And so the collaboration and the learning across all these companies, as we have, summits, yearly for marketing and sales, or finance, or payments, or dev, whatever. It's the cross learning has been just fantastic.
Let's, for our listeners out there, explain ERP, enterprise resource planning, which big manufacturing companies use to manage everything from orders and inventory and finances, and maybe to the shop floor, something like that. Who do you serve, and what are the kinds of functions that your software does for them?
Yeah, I think of our market as sort of the bullseye of a dartboard. So the very center of that target is precision machine shops in regulated industries. So consider, companies that are making parts for aerospace and defense, or medical devices, or nuclear industries, or oil and gas. So they have a lot of regulatory, both quality and security and compliance things that they need to consider. They're in very demanding industries that have just crazy amount of requirements and quality and demanding schedules. And so they have a lot of things to keep track of and make sure everything comes together to deliver on time for their clients. Concentric circles just outside of that would be other types of precision manufacturers, also in regulated industries. So companies that making composites, or machine builders, or fabricators, but they're people that are turning, raw materials into finished goods and doing a lot of, value added processes to it. They're not reselling things. They're not just, pushing widgets around. They're taking raw materials, adding a lot of value, and selling them for, very high dollars.
And ERP is like one of the more complicated business software because it does so much.
It is.
From your financials to the shop floor to all the process and workflow game and all of that. Is there anything that it doesn't do in a business?
ERP is traditionally the backbone of the business, right? Like you said, from all the finance to operations. Now, we take a little bit of a different approach, and I think that's actually why we've had such good product market fit, is because traditionally our competitors are more accounting-based systems that don't have, quite honestly, nearly enough shop floor and quality functionality that our customers want and need. And when we had our own shop, and we were at the growth stage where we needed some software, when we went out and looked on the market and did the research, looking at all of our people that are competitors today, when we looked at their products and got demos, and quite honestly, we were genuinely excited to learn about what these offerings were. Once we saw what they actually were offering, we were really disappointed in it. The heart and soul of a manufacturing company is the shop floor, right? That is where they add their value. That's what the customers are paying for. And so to have weak functionality there, and to still need lots of spreadsheets and paper documents and other stuff, it seemed like a non-starter to us. So that's really what drove us to start building our own for ourselves, because we didn't want to take a step backwards, quite honestly, from what we were doing even just in Excel and having a paperless shop floor, to buy one of these expensive tools and now introduce a ton of paper and still have all the spreadsheets.
More paper,
Yeah. So Yeah, so we just genuinely built it for ourselves, had no intentions of selling it to anyone else, not until years later when our biggest manufacturing customer approached us and asked us to sell it to them. That's when we, decided that maybe we were onto something here. So yeah, it was built very organically, and it does run the whole business.
Right. It's a little interesting. You think that the smart Silicon Valley disruptor funded competitors come into a space and say, we know how to do software. You guys know how to build stuff, but you don't know software. And they come in and you thought, no, that's not really enough. We're just going to start building some stuff that we can use, and turned out to be that savvy, that deep savvy. Like you've been doing this and you speak the language and you know what you really need. And you know what's really first and what's important. That actually wins the day for a lot of practical founders. Maybe there's some. Do you have big funded competitors now?
There's a couple. There's not a lot. Most of them are pretty legacy, quite honestly.
Yeah.
Although several of them have been purchased up by PE firms and are
That'll make them more legacy. Yeah.
Doing terrible things. Yeah. Really lack of focus on client support. But there's a couple smaller, well-funded ones, more VC type money, and they have pretty products, and they serve a need for sure, but they definitely lack the depth of expertise in the industry that we bring, and our clients really, really value.
Well, it's taken you a long way, and now you have this new kind of business, a SaaS business to go play with, versus your machine shop business, which I need to do very sophisticated things and make real world stuff that creates all the things that we see, behind us. It's it drives it, and really important to our economy as well here. So we'll talk about your whole journey and how you're going to change the world with ProShop. Do you call it ProShop ERP or ProShop, the company?
Usually it's just ProShop. Yeah.
Awesome. Great. Well, let's go back then, Paul. Thanks for all of that here. You're in Bellingham, Washington, north of Seattle. So you're in the northwest of the country here. And you owned a machine shop and ran it for a long time. Tell us about what that world was like and how you got started.
Yeah, we had that business for 17 years. And like I said, we started it right out of college, funded by a second mortgage. So very humble origins, little tiny 2,000 square foot warehouse space. And we kind of got the manufacturing bug in college. We designed and built race cars for the Formula SAE competition, which is actually an international collegiate competition. Just a total blast. I just fell in love with it and wanted to keep working together so several of the team members from that team are what started the machine shop. And we had that for 17 years, just sort of grew it through 2 recessions, which was tough, but we learned a lot of good lessons along the way.
And it was a sophisticated machining for aerospace. Like you were regulated and doing specialist precision stuff, right? Not making custom parts and machine tools and things like that.
We weren't, machining people's cylinder heads on their cars. We were, these were parts that went into, the F-35 and Boeing and medical devices and high-tech industries, very precision parts and assemblies. So it was a sophisticated business. And like you said, it's machine shops like that are the foundation of everything that gets made in the world. So it's a really important industry to support. But we learned a lot about it over many years. We grew up to about 75 people, about 11 million in revenue when we sold it. So it was a decent sized venture. And
so you were selling to big companies. You're making these custom precision parts along the way here. It sounds like fun to make all that stuff. My son is a builder engineer loves all that CNC stuff and, creating real stuff you could see and all of that. Is that a really tough business? I don't know. Very competitive.
It's extraordinarily tough. I always say it's the hardest business in the world, to be honest. It's very capital intensive, very competitive. Even in some industries, they can't really send that work offshore, but unlike most blue collar industries, it is a global market. So, a machine shop in Bellingham, Washington is competing against every other shop in the entire country and in some cases the world. Yeah. So it's not like a plumber or HVAC company that's only, competing in their local market. So it is not uncommon that a precision machining company will charge a lower hourly rate for a $250,000 CNC machine and a highly skilled machinist, than a plumber would charge to come out and fix your drain. So
Wow.
the margins are slim. The competition is tough, and the complexities are really intense, right? You're holding, thousandths or 10,000ths of an inch. So extremely high tolerances. Like I said earlier, lots of regulatory compliance, lots of cybersecurity compliance. It's just hard, but they can still, be great profitable businesses, creating a lot of, wealth for their shareholders. And it's essential, because it makes everything else that makes everything in the world. So I definitely got bitten by the bug.
Awesome. Did you view your spreadsheets using the PCs in the early days and then doing, I don't know, Visual Basic or whatever, something on top of that? Did you view that software progression inside the business to manage things as like a superpower to make you more efficient and compete better? Or was it something you just wanted to do to control your environment?
Yeah, so coming right out of college in 97, we definitely were using computers all day, every day in college for building our cars and doing our things. And so we knew that we wanted to have a paperless manufacturing company, which was pretty rare at the time. I don't think we ever ran across anyone else that said they wanted to do that or were actually doing that. So we would put a computer at every single machine and every place that people worked with a big CRT monitor back then.
Yep. Uh-huh.
And we'd have these shared these shared Excel workbooks. And you're right, we had Visual Basic. My partner Kelsey programmed all these Visual Basic macros to spawn and duplicate sheets and do all sorts of cool things. Yeah. And quite honestly, that was definitely one of our strategic advantages compared to the shops that we competed with that were still on paper after, years of running their businesses. And that's why, quite honestly, we didn't want to what we perceived as a step backwards by buying the products that were on the market, around 2000, when we started realizing that these Excel sheets weren't going to take us through for the next, 10 years or more. So it was definitely an advantage, we think, for sure. And in hindsight, of course, it became the prototype for ProShop. Like the first modules were replicating all the functionality in those spreadsheets.
So you did your internal MVP for yourself.
Absolutely.
Right? Chiseled it, out of the stone and got something rough and said, this works, that works, doesn't work. All right, let's keep building it here. Is that when you hired Kelsey, your tech co-founder, and said,
Matt was the tech.
Oh, sorry.
Matt was the tech co-founder. Kelsey was my original partner. Yes, that's when we hired Matt. And thank goodness he was a web developer. So in 2000, he was already building web apps. And so that's what we started with. So for those maybe in the know, we started on a product called Frontier, and Frontier was popular in blogs, or it was used to build. It was sort of all in one. It had a database, it had scripting language, it had the front end.
Yeah.
Probably butchering it, but it was kind of a rapid prototyping product that was entirely browser based. And so that's what we used to build the first version of ProShop.
And that was early 2000s. That's when we said browser-based back then, right?
Yes.
It wasn't cloud.
We had an internal server, but every workstation that accessed it was just using, whatever browser back then, Firefox or Internet Explorer, or it was all browser-based. So I'm glad, it was fortunate that that's what we chose instead of something else, because it obviously worked great in the long run.
Yeah, a lot of companies started with Windows at that time and software that ran on each PC and connected up to a database someplace, client server, and all of
absolutely.
that. And then they had to throw it away and build for cloud and keep going that way. But you guys kind of had that in your DNA. When did you guys start adding a few developers to your team? So you were now the strange machine shop that had an internal software development team. When did you guys start doing that?
So Matt was the sole developer for many years. Probably until, I don't know exactly, 2012 maybe.
Oh, really?
Something like that.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
And then the second developer we hired was actually his brother, his younger brother, who's an absolute genius. The two of them took us all the way up until, I don't know, we probably added the next developer probably in 2017 or 18, maybe.
Yeah. So as a company owner, you're making your own software. And like in 2005, a lot of vertical software sucked back then. You couldn't just get all this off the shelf cloud development stuff that makes it so easy to create apps these days. You had to do it really the long way. And vertical software companies with small total available markets were undercapitalized. So if somebody said, we have software for the machine shop industry back in 2005, you say, well, your software probably sucks and you got a lot of grumpy customers and so forth. But you guys were building this internally and growing it here. Did you view this as like you weren't really building a software product? You just had a software guy in the team that made your system, right? Because you invested over years to build and test this kind of thing, you know?
Yeah. Well, actually, at the very beginning, our intention was just to replace our spreadsheets with, something that was more scalable, and we didn't have to yell across the shop, "Hey, can you close that so I can
close that
it?"
one?" Yeah.
So we thought it would only take a couple of years to replicate those, and then we'd be done, right?
Yeah.
And then it would just be a couple year project, and Matt would be done and go on to do something else. But yeah, after we finished the original spreadsheets, there's just more and more things we kept wanting him to build. So we added more modules, and we added the quality. We got ISO certified and build the whole QMS, and we just kept going and kept going. As our shop needs got more sophisticated, we kept needing more modules and more deeper functionality. And Matt kept building it.
Yeah. When was it that you realized, I don't know, maybe a competitor stopped by or a customer stopped by and said, wait a minute, this is amazing. Nobody's doing this. Did you always know that was a secret sauce, or when did it get revealed?
Yeah, I don't think we did realize how remarkable what we were building, what actually was. And it wasn't until, and I love this part of our story so much, one of our biggest machine shop customers, their, I think, production manager at the time was a good friend of ours. We'd worked with them for years, friends on a personal basis as well. And he wanted to build a sports court in the backyard of his house. And his wife said, you have to do it with extra money beyond your salary. So he said, hey, can I come work for you guys on Fridays and weekends to earn some extra money? And so he came and just ran machines, did setups, worked out on the floor and used ProShop, because that's how all our machinists did it. And he came to us one day and he said, this is amazing software. Can you tell us where you bought it so we can call on them from our company? And we said, no, we actually built this ourselves. And so that's what started, the whole journey for ProShop.
Well, you say it was a side gig, the software product. Did you sell that one company and say, well, that'll be a one-off and, a little overhead to go manage? You weren't a software company back then. So
no, we weren't. And we did think long and hard. Do we want to take on, a software customer? Because that's a big responsibility. They're going to be running their whole company on our product. It's not to be taken lightly. No, as those conversations evolved, we did realize, I think, that we kind of needed to start looking, and we actually did incorporate a second company just to keep the IP separate and to kind of keep it clean. So yeah, it was that, sort of 2009 timeframe where we did start really thinking this, maybe we had something, and their results absolutely confirmed that, what was working really well at our shop also worked brilliantly at theirs. They actually went live in 3 weeks after we sort of turned it on for them, and they turned off their old ERP in 3 weeks, which is unheard of.
It's amazing. Unheard of. ERP, anybody I know who says I'm a founder and I've got some ERP for distribution business, I'm sorry to hear that. The software is so complicated. It's impossible for a company to change ERPs because it's connected to everything in the darn business. So complicated. And then it takes forever to get them to onboard. And it's just a really tough business kind of thing.
It is.
So you had an epiphany, like to get up and running in 3 weeks and somebody throws out their old one, either says something about how amazing your software was or how crappy the alternative was, or, it was just an oddball thing. That's really amazing in this complicated ERP space.
Yeah. I mean, there was for sure a bunch of work in advance of that, of us sort of understanding their data structure and doing some importing into our system. But when they started actually using it, it was only 3 weeks until they turned off their old system. Yeah, that was, an order of magnitude faster than we were expecting, I think. And
pretty amazing.
And then they referred us to actually a competitor of ours, another machine shop that they also worked with. went great there as well. And that's when it was just, we were decided for sure, this is definitely the route we're going. We can see the potential.
What was the epiphany, or what were the big epiphanies that first, side gig customer had that said, this is amazing in our business? What did they feel like? Did they finally say, we can see everything that's going on? Or did they say, we don't need as many people to do it because it was all manual before? Or what hit them like a ton of bricks?
Yeah, no, I appreciate you asking. And it's ironic, this is all fresh in my mind because I just did an interview with them for what new podcast we're launching just a couple of weeks ago. So it's very fresh. So yeah, they freed up. So they were a team of 35 employees at the time when they onboarded with us. They freed up 3 full-time overhead staff within a couple of months. So almost 10% of their labor, repurposed them into, more value-added positions. They stopped having to meet every single day with 10 people for their production meeting to try to stay on top of all their late orders. So their late order list shrunk down to almost nothing, from 10 pages worth. Wow. They dropped their WIP and inventory by, I think, close to $1 million over the course of several months. Their on-time delivery improved. So many metrics improved. And quite honestly, the most tangible thing to them was just their stress level got so much better. It wasn't just firefighting all day, every day. It was like actually running the business from numbers and proper data and getting ahead of things rather than always scrambling and behind schedule.
Well, you changed their world.
We really did. We absolutely did.
Wow, that's amazing.
And that felt really good. Good.
Sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, because you can deliver a set of parts on time and people say, thanks for doing it the right way and getting it on time. But, there's no high five party in your honor. There's no parade in your honor.
Sure.
Like these guys were doing, over there. You were the hero when you walked in the building, probably after a few months. So really cool.
Yeah.
All right. How long did it take for you guys to realize we should be in the software business and maybe not in this machine shop business?
Well, like I said, when they had just the amazing results and then immediately started referring us to, a couple other shops, and we also had similar results, it was through that period where we just further solidified that software was going to be our future.
And then you started a process to sell your business and,
we did.
Jump over to your software business kind of thing?
Yep. We hired an M&A firm to take us to market. So they went through a very formalized process. And ultimately that culminated in selling the business in early 2014.
And is that an exciting exit? We talk about exciting exits in SaaS, the 10 times revenue multiples. It's over. It probably wasn't the same level.
It's not the same level of software. Yep. It's more, maybe 4 to 5 times multiple, and not of ARR, but of EBITDA. So, it's an amazing windfall, but it's not, hang up your cleats and, retire out your days on the beach kind of money for sure. But it was enough to, sock some stuff away and to, throw a little bit into the software business to, bootstrap that one.
So you had ProShop on the side, the software business. How big did that get when you sold your Pro CNC?
How big was the software business?
Yeah. How many customers did you have before you cut the cord and quit your day jobs?
Really only about 3.
Okay.
Yeah. And we were just on the cusp of bringing on a 4th, but yeah, it was pretty small, but it was enough ARR to, cover some of the basics, and like I said, with a few $100,000 of our own investment, was enough to not need anything else externally for 6 years or so.
But the bigger thing, and this is the bigger thing for all founders, when you build software for yourself and then you sell it to friends, the validation comes as you go. Is it working or not, or whatever? It's really tricky for founders to come in an industry they don't know and see if people want their software. But you had very concrete validation, and it was crystal clear to you guys. This is maybe not that just going to be a big company, but this is going to be a company.
Yeah. And if our aspirations were definitely smaller than what's turning out to be the case, we thought it would be just sort of a little niche business and maybe a lifestyle. And after, 4 or 5 years, we might sell that, if we got enough value out of it. I think because, we built the product to solve our own needs, our own problems. Once we started communicating what we actually did out on the market, the product market fit was undeniable. And, with no real marketing team and no sales budget and no advertising, we just started getting tons of inbound inquiries. I mean, even to date, 90+% of all of our clients have come from inbound, from inbound sources or referrals. Organic SEO is our number one lead source, and referrals is our second. There's just a lot of demand out there. The TAM, or the total number of potential shops in North America, is about 20 to 22,000 for the precision machine shops.
And how many of them would actually do the work to use the software and then use it in the right way? You got to change a little process inside your building.
Oh yeah,
and that's part of the nightmare of installing new ERP software. But apparently, there was a fit with the kind of precision regulated stuff. They were already doing the processes. You didn't have to teach them how to be Six Sigma or these kind of quality processes or something like that. That some will never do. Some just grip it and rip it out there, I'm sure.
Yeah. Oh yeah. The full gamut definitely exists out there. And some of them, come into us already very well aligned with the way we think about running a manufacturing company. And others have aspirations about getting better, but they don't know how to do it. And so they need a lot of hand-holding. They need a lot of, quite honestly, business advice and business expertise that's not even directly related to just the software itself. It's the change
how to run
of
a business. That complicated stuff.
The change of business processes and maturing of the business itself that the software can support. And so we actually call ProShop very much, it's an operating system for a business. It's not just a software tool. It is an operating system. And I think that's what's so meaningful to so many of our clients is we teach them a new way to run their business that's much more scalable, much more profitable, lets them have vacations, lets them, diversify to other industries, lets them, get everything out of the owner's heads and into a real business process that's owned by their teams.
Is that part of what they're buying? Obviously, the software functionality is, all the whiz bang and the basics and the, all that, we're going to get our data over and so forth. But when they come calling because of a referral or they heard about it, are they really saying, yeah, I want all that software plumbing stuff, but I really want a better business and a better life?
Yes, that ultimately is what they're looking for. Some of them don't realize at the onset how big of a change it will ultimately become. Some of them just think they're buying, software that's not as glitchy or not as a bad fit as their last one. But that light bulb goes off at different times for different customers. But all of them ultimately get to the point where they can see the true transformation it can help their business make.
How many people are on the dev team right now building the product? ERP is a big product, right? Lots of processes, lots of customization, all that kind of stuff.
Yeah, I should know all the numbers off the top of my head, but it's around 25 or so.
Yeah. So
it's our biggest department. It's our biggest.
You guys had to learn how to be a software company and make product, not just Matt answering your requests, right?
That's correct. We did.
Kind of thing. What was that like? Was that a bumpy journey going from one person to a team and presumably modern technologies, AWS and now modern cloud stack and things like that? Was that a nightmare or was that kind of a straight line for you guys?
Oh, there were ups and downs, but I think one of the benefits that we had coming from the other company was we had just great deep relationships that were just so strong. My partners and I just love each other, quite honestly, and are really lean on each other. So we could spread the load, between us. And then we also were because ProShop itself is built around the ideas of scalable business processes. That's just kind of in our DNA and that's the way we built our manufacturing company. So we're really have been about building processes, as we build ProShop. And so I don't know if we're more that way than most companies because I've never worked in any other company besides my own companies.
Yes.
But I think that has helped us.
I can
greatly.
answer that. Yeah.
Yeah,
Most
that's
software
helped us
companies,
greatly.
they don't say the word operations for a couple of years, and they don't say the word process for as long as they can avoid it. They're building stuff but you had a very systematic, extremely process oriented, your quality processes, your regulation processes, the building processes, you know, standard operating procedures is term for the document with the precise steps to do everything that really didn't show up in the software business until a couple of years ago. So
Got it.
if you put you up with a bunch of software founders, you guys would be the more structured, systematic, process
Right.
oriented on the
Yeah.
scale. You'd be high.
Yeah. And quite honestly, the last, 8, 9 months or so with Mainsail has been just a continuation of that, maturing that, making that even more sort of industry standard, because they're very much about, building scalable businesses,
Yeah.
taking from the 10 to $50 million plus revenue goal. So they've been very helpful in helping us mature those processes in the last many months.
So you had this software and you were getting inquiries. Did you guys just grow steadily, find the right kind of customers, do the right stuff for them, build the right stuff on the roadmap, to kind of add the right people? The journey from 1 million to 10 million is usually got some bumps if you're not being systematic about it. What was the biggest surprise for you in scaling up a SaaS business?
Well, I'm not sure it's a surprise, but well, in hindsight, we were very fortunate that we had, 14, 15 years worth of software development under our belt before we actually really kind of launched. Like I said, we had those
Right.
early handful of customers, but when we turned on a website in 2016, we were coming to market with something that was incredibly mature, right? So it's not like we had just MVP plus, like we had a deeply mature product. And so when we started demoing for these shops that were inquiring, they're like, holy cow, like this is amazing. So without
Did you do those demos where they said, well, what about this? And then you bring up the screen. And then what about this? You bring up the screen. At the end of it, they're like, I don't know. You stumped me. One of those. That's pretty amazing.
Those were very fun demos. Absolutely.
Yeah.
And we were even joking about coming up with slogans or taglines, and like, yes, it's in there, or yes, it's also in there, was one of the ones that we joked about. I'd say that was a huge, plus for us and allowed us to, grow, I think, in those early years much faster than if we had a nice but somewhat immature product. So that was a real boon to us. And I think the fact that we came from the industry and, not only could we show them modules that already answered the problems they were having, but we could field pretty much any question they threw at us, whether it was software related or not,
Right.
And they could tell that they were speaking to one of their own, right?
Yeah.
And especially in this industry, there's a lot of skepticism. There's a lot of people that are very cautious. They're skeptical of software companies because they've been burned. The ERP industry has, in general, a terrible reputation.
Yeah.
Right. If you just Google ERP, implementation success rates or failure rates, it's like 75% failure. Right. It's just horrendous. And there's a lot of companies, in this, not a lot. There are some companies in our space that I'd say are pretty unethical. Right. They are really selling the moon and not delivering. And so we kind of do the opposite. We try to be as transparent as possible, as cautious as possible. We do not want to sign up companies that are not a good fit for us. We kick clients or kick prospects out of our sales funnel all the time because they're either not the right fit on paper, or we can just tell we don't want to work with these particular people because they don't seem to be in alignment with our values, or like they're going to be a real, headache, and we don't want to, put that onto our client support team or our implementation team. So we're pretty selective, even still today. And I think ultimately that sometimes is a little harder, to try to, get those sales in if you're kicking 20% out the door. But ultimately, that is a much stronger position for us to be in.
Oh my gosh.
When all of our clients are really well aligned and are good clients, our NPS scores are, over 70.
Wow.
So and we
It's a
even
record in ERP.
yeah, we even got the domain name loveyouerp.com because love and ERP never go
Yeah,
together in
so
the
I
same
totally
sentence.
get it. Yeah, you've
But we
said
have
the
clients all the time, just, unsolicited, saying, I love ProShop. So we leaned into that, and I think it's worked for us.
what is the typical annual contract value for a customer? You probably have some big customers, small one. What is kind of average, and how do you sell it?
You're right. It's all over the map, but I'd say our average is probably around 25 to 30,000
Hmm.
ACV. And that's changing as we offer more products and more things that they can add in. But the vast majority of our clients, are subscription, us, GovCloud or AWS.
Yeah.
But we do have a small percentage that are in, very highly regulated industries that
Mm-hmm.
cannot do or are willing to do, or because they're out in the cornfield in the middle of Iowa, don't have the
Yeah.
bandwidth to actually run an enterprise cloud service. So we do have an on-premise option.
Wow.
It's the same exact product. There's nothing different
Yeah.
about the code base
Mhm.
whatsoever. It's just installed on a local server, but it can even run air gapped. We have clients that
Mm.
are totally air gapped to the internet, and it runs just fine. And once a year, every 6 months, they let us, in a very controlled way, connect to the system and do updates. So anyway, but it's a
Mhm.
pretty small minority of our clients that do that.
And is it hundreds of customers now?
Yeah, we're around the 500 client mark.
Wow, that's a real company. And now you have almost 100 employees, and you have,
Yep.
I guess, VPs in every department, senior leaders
We
grown
do.
up, or you've brought in. You're at that
Yep.
phase and all that EOS game, right? The
Mm-hmm.
synchronization and your culture and values, documenting that in your hiring process in your department and your goals for the year and quarterly goals and all that
Absolutely.
puzzle and stuff. Was there anything in there that was really hard? I know you like that game and you're systematic about it. You probably ate it up, and then started teaching it to, your machine shop buddies. But what was the hardest part about that, going from the scrappy startup team that had worked together for so long to building the company that's scattered about?
Yeah, I think one of the things that we're still learning today is focusing on fewer things with more, just with more focus on fewer things,
Mm-hmm.
right? When you're growing, 40 to 100% a year, there's a lot of things going on. And
Yeah.
and I'll really admit, I have shiny object syndrome probably as bad as the next
Mm.
guy. And so sometimes that's a detriment to have just too many irons in the fire.
Mm-hmm.
In the manufacturing world, we call that WIP, work in process.
Mm-hmm. Sure. Uh-huh.
So it's not finished goods yet. It's WIP, it's
Yeah.
work in process. And we've had too much WIP. And so
Mm.
we are now really sort of getting more fanatical on fewer initiatives, fewer projects, delivering them faster, getting them over the finish line, and then moving on to the next thing. So that's been a learning process for sure.
Awesome. And what is your role in this co-founding team?
I was this sales and marketing guy. I guess we hired our first salesperson, 2021. I can't remember exactly. But,
Mm.
For the first, 4 to 5 years, I did all the selling, right? So I sold the first couple hundred
Mm-hmm.
customers or so, just all by myself. And we have had a marketing person, Sarah,
Mm-hmm.
who's incredible on our team since pretty early on. When we took the Mainsail investment, I knew that I didn't want to continue leading sales, but I did want to continue leading marketing. So,
Mm.
I'm the CMO, and we hired
Okay.
a really brilliant VP of sales who has done this many times, has been through this, this phase of the journey with other businesses, is even more process driven and spreadsheet numbers, metric driven than even I was. And so been a great addition. And I think I'm a reasonable, sort of face and advocate of the business because I was a
Yeah.
shop founder, just like the companies we're
Mm-hmm.
selling to. So we lead with a lot of, content marketing based on trying to deliver real value that's even unrelated to our software.
Right.
So for example, we do a monthly webinar, and we're often bringing in, third party people that have something of value to add to the business. For a couple of years now, we've had an accounting firm come in and talk about R&D tax credits.
Mm-hmm.
And so we're teaching our customers about the importance of it, how their activities actually qualify as it. There's a lot of money on the table. They're leaving. And by the way, ProShop can help collect that data really easily, and just a few clicks and boom, you got your report. But the lion's share of the education is just around something that can help that business. And that's the way we did it in the machine shop business, just trying to add value without necessarily an expectation of anything in return. But as we all know how it goes, you get it back 10 times. So we really try to support the industry with best practices and just be a thought leader. And it's worked.
Awesome. How big was the company ProShop before you hired the first sales leader? I don't know if this VP of sales was your first sales leader.
He was the first leader. Yep.
Okay.
Yep.
How big are you guys when you jumped all the way up to the VP of sales?
Well, it was just last, I guess, October, I think.
Wow.
September, October. So yeah, we were already in the, 8 million, 9 million, whatever range. I should know all these numbers by the top of my head,
Yeah.
but I just don't. So yeah, we
And how
took it
many
pretty
salespeople did you have? This is a really common problem in that $3 to $10 million, bumpy journey.
Prior to bringing on Walt, it was me and 3 salespeople, or 3.5, because we had one person that was kind of half sales, half implementation in our Australia region. But in the North America here, just three AEs and me.
And how do you handle the salespeople trying to make their quota, but it's a bad fit, and the customer success team behind them starting to sweat? We don't like this one. Founders can play that game and sacrifice a little short-term revenue, but when you start hiring salespeople and you push them and you get a quota, they get a little coin operated. How do you manage the best fit customers in that transition? Yeah,
I guess we have navigated that quite well, because our 3 AEs are as on board as I am about not wanting to bring in a bad fit client, because they know that bad fit client, if it doesn't go well, they're going to tell 100 people it went poorly versus you have a client that it goes great and they tell 10 people, right?
Right.
So they're definitely there playing the long game, just like we are. And I'm so grateful for it. Just exceptional people that really care about the business and the clients.
And so they can actually feel the benefit of having a stellar customer reputation and your fanatical customer service attitude. They can feel that in the pipeline, and they don't want to break it. Though they might make a little more money this quarter, they don't want to be the one that spoils the magic trick.
Yeah, when we have our weekly sales meetings and they're summarizing some of the deals or discovery calls that they're working on, they'll say, yeah, I had a, call with this company. On paper, it's a great fit. It's a regulated machine shop, but boy, the owner seemed like a jerk. He just kept interrupting and just, getting a kind of obstinate. And so I told him, we're not going to continue. And it's music to my ears.
Okay. Well, there's another rare one here. You don't hear that from many SaaS salespeople these days. And so you must have a very strong culture and visibility about what is working in your business. So it's kind of sacred.
Yeah.
As opposed
our culture
to,
we work very hard on our culture. I mean, the founders, of course, are critical in it, but our chief people person, Adrian, I would just give her huge kudos and credit to helping us build just an amazing team and culture. She has an uncanny ability to, during the interview process, really just kind of see a person, who they are, what they're like. During all those years of growth, especially during the COVID years when everyone was like, this mass quitting was happening.
Yeah.
Like I said, we grew from, 24 people to 70 plus people. Through all those years, we've probably only lost half a dozen employees in total, right? Usually for some logistical reason, or occasionally we'd make a bad hire, but an incredible, percentage are just such in great alignment with our culture. And especially as a distributed company, we're not all in the same space, so it's all virtual, but we can keep it really strong. And kindness is one of our core values. And we even put that in our job ads. And it attracts people that are really in alignment with what we care about. And employees invariably say when they come on, it's the most welcoming, supportive. They feel just welcomed so much right away. It was funny. We just had a meeting recently, and one of the employees who came from more of a corporate culture said, everyone was really nice when she first started, and she was waiting for the waiting for it to change, or waiting for, the sort of debt she was building up of people being nice, where they start cashing it in, and it just never happened. And she could finally like let her guard down and just be comfortable that this was a team of people that really cared about each other's success and were champions for each other, to the end.
Well, this thing started growing and I guess picked up steam. Did you know you wanted to raise some growth equity funding, some practical, institutional funding that could help you grow a little bit faster, take a little bit money off the table? Or did that just appear and happen?
For years and years, we had no interest whatsoever, right? We were profitable. We were growing nicely. We could hire as many people as we wanted to. It wasn't until, I guess it was the end of 2022 when, our growth was sort of catching up with our cash flow. So we started saying,
Yeah.
oh, you know what? We have to, kind of be a little more careful on how fast we're hiring, because we just can't, we don't have the cash flow to float it.
Because the bigger you grow, the more cash you need to keep
Absolutely.
going up to these next levels here.
Absolutely. Yeah. And so that became, a little more challenging, constraining our hiring a little bit. Some of our competitors were taking some pretty big rounds and really coming after us hard on pay-per-click and, other marketing they were doing. And quite honestly, we, started, realizing we had a lot of eggs in this basket, and taking at least some chips off the table might be a prudent thing to do.
Yeah.
You never know what's going to happen in the economy or who knows what. So sort of those things sort of culminated all around the same time. And I'm sure, as most, founders know, you're constantly getting hit up by PE firms and VCs and just, a dozen or more emails a week, right? And we would just respectfully, no thanks, we're fine. Just put them in, tag them and put them in a file. But Mainsail, they had started calling on us in, I think, 2018 or 2019. And they just, every 6 months, just checking in, saying hi once or twice, as they were like, or at least supposedly coming from like Seattle to Vancouver. They're like, hey, we'll be passing through town. You want to grab coffee? So did that once or twice, and, shared some very high level rough numbers. This is the thing that ultimately made it work. They said, hey, we're going to be in town. Love to take you out for breakfast. And this was in December of 22. Actually, I had my wife with me, and we went and had breakfast. And right in the middle of breakfast, they pulled out their briefcase and dropped an offer on the table.
Yeah.
Just right in the middle.
Literally. Yeah.
Yeah. Literally dropped it on the table. We looked at it and our eyes got a little bit big, and like, wow, we didn't quite realize, what a software company like this is actually worth. We truly were just heads down, nose to the grindstone. While that was flattering, we still hadn't gotten to that decision-making point yet. So we're like, wow, that's very flattering, but no thanks. And they came back, 20% more, like a few days later. They're like, this is a really, you're a good, shrewd negotiator. It's like, no, it wasn't. It genuinely wasn't a negotiation.
No, that's
tactic.
the move is, no thanks. Not really. Yeah.
So ultimately, like I said, we had this realization that we wanted to do this. We did not hire investment banker or anyone else to help us through that. We ran this ourselves, because we had previously sold our manufacturing company and kind of knew how it worked. And when we talked to the lawyers, they said, you guys ran a really good process. Like, I'll give credit to my partners who mostly did a lot of that work. But yeah, we ran a pretty good process and ultimately did a minority investment with Mainsail. So, and like I said, it's just been a great partnership since.
Okay. So you even validated the Mainsail's offer and said, is this the right kind of offer?
It came in, their original offer was majority, as they do with most of their firms. But I think we were one of two minority ones that they've agreed to and done. So, but it was really important to us that that's what it was.
And that was reported for 32 million investment. Some of that went to the business, some of that went to founders and owners and all of that, as it happens here. For the benefit of SaaS founders listening here, it's not so clear out there, and it's not so obvious from the funders themselves. How do you see the difference between traditional VC, private equity, and growth equity, which is this practical but interesting blend in the middle? Is there a way to characterize those three buckets that would help founders see it more clearly?
Yeah, and I can only do so much because I've never been
Yeah, yeah.
involved in VC, so it's all third party information. But VCs want you to, they're making big bets. It's all going on the balance sheet. It's not secondary, and they make lots of bets, and most of them won't work out. And
Right,
they want you to be, if you're not growing 150%, they don't even want to talk to you, right?
right.
It's got to be really rapid growth, and 1 in 10 will go to the moon and the rest will fizzle out. Whereas private equity, generally wants a majority stake. They want to then really focus on margins and cost, and more systematic, strong growth, but not crazy, growth percentages. Growth equity is kind of in between, right? They're happy with our 40 to 50% growth. They're not looking for triple digit growth. We don't want to try to do triple digit growth. It's too
Yeah.
dangerous, I
Breaks
think.
a lot of things. Yeah.
Breaks a lot of systems. Yeah. Probably leads to more client dissatisfaction, which is not something we're willing to give up on. In Mainsail's case in particular, about half of their company is their operations team, right? They have domain experts in every aspect of the business that we need to get better at. And so they bring just a ton to the table. Like I said, from I said earlier, from the summits we go to, like I went to a growth summit with all the sales and marketing leaders from all their portfolio companies. And I was just jaw on the floor, gobsmacked at how good these people were at sales and marketing. Like they were
Hmm.
so good. I had some imposter syndrome. I was like, oh my gosh, I do not belong in this room. Like, I know my industry and I'm savvy and I can do well because of that. But everything else that they're talking about, the metrics and the dashboards and the strategies, I was like, wow, I do not know what I'm talking about. And that just reinforced that we want to bring in a sales leader that's done this before,
Yeah.
because the maturity, yeah, the 1 to 10 is a lot of, scrappy bootstrapper things, but I'm not the person to build the systems to get us to 50 or 100. I'm just
Yeah.
not. So yeah, that's a little bit how I see the difference. And for us, growth equity was absolutely the sweet spot.
A lot of growth equity providers, the bigger ones, have these platform teams that help you with
Mm-hmm.
your operations. So you
Yes.
have a question about something deep in your financials or the metrics.
Yeah.
There's a guru that has seen it 75 different ways and will come and
Absolutely.
consult with you effectively, or
Yes.
hiring or process or CEO or legal or whatever, like name it. It's quote, not just the money, it's their help that shows up.
Absolutely.
Has
Yeah.
that been your experience in the last
Yeah.
year, with them?
Well, that's exactly what I was just describing. Their operations team, about half the head staff in their company is operations. So they are, and operations, what I mean by that more specifically is operations support for their portfolio companies.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, Sarah and I get on a monthly call with their domain experts in sales or in marketing specifically.
Mm-hmm.
And then there's sales leaders, there's people that, are in every aspect that are helping consult with us. So, if we want to step up our SEO game or our pay-per-click lead gen, they're like, yeah, we've done it 100 times. Here's some playbooks. Here's some resource providers that we have actually used externally that come highly recommended by other portcos. The number of like better decisions and faster things that we can learn because they're there to support us is so much better than us figuring it out on our own and making, just a lot more churn and mistakes and learning as we go. So we can just be really more focused on getting better at all the different aspects of the business that'll take us from 10 to 50.
Awesome.
That's been
Well,
hugely
10 to
valuable.
50 is a pretty, changes in industry. Is that your vision? You've got, how many customers did you say now?
About 500.
You got 500 customers now, and that is thousands of customers, is the plan.
Mm-hmm.
You're going to grow
Mm-hmm.
together and eventually sell the company because now you got investors who want to get paid back at some point, not indefinitely and not tomorrow, at a practical rate here. What is the vision for growing the company for the next 5 years?
Yeah, I mean, and quite honestly, this was another part of our decision making to take investment. We knew that we could help more shops, more manufacturing customers if we had a partner like Mainsail.
Yeah.
If it was just on our own, our growth rate was going to slow. and we could not help as many companies as we could otherwise. And
Mm.
like I said earlier, we care so deeply about this industry, know how difficult it is, know the impact that can be made when you have the right
Mm-hmm.
processes and systems in place. And our industry, I would summarize it by saying the ERP, manufacturing ERP,
Mm-hmm.
it's very crowded with some good and a lot of really crappy products. And we do think that we can become, the market leader and have, more clients than any others. And we can bring, significant double digit, improvements in efficiency and profitability to these companies. And because they're the backbone of all manufacturing in North America
Mm-hmm.
or wherever our clients are, because we have clients all over the world, but because they're the backbone of that, if we can have a significant measurable difference in their operations, then we
Mm-hmm.
can have an impact in the greater economy, right? And make it much easier for these businesses to thrive and hire more people and support their local communities. And that's really, I mean, that is our mission statement, in a nutshell. And that's what we want to do. Yeah, we want to make a difference.
Awesome. And which means that goal and that vision is more important than the challenges that you'll face scaling up to hundreds of employees, a different
Yes.
sport completely,
Yep.
which
Yes.
a lot of founders aren't really interested in, having lots of employees and going big and so forth. They'll take it as far as it works for them.
Mhm.
Is that exciting to you to imagine being in a company of hundreds of employees or maybe even thousands? I've done that several times, 2 times in my life to 500 employees. And it's a different world from the crazy startup zone and growth zone and the, 150 employees and so forth. But
Sure.
are you guys excited about growing a serious company in your own way at your own pace?
We are immensely excited about that.
Oh, wow.
I don't know. It feels like our culture is almost getting better and better the bigger it gets.
Love that.
It's not going downhill. It's going the opposite. We had 2 new people start last week, and just their feedback and the reason they wanted to join the company from seeing it on the outside. In fact, ironically, both of those new employees were customers of ours at shops that used our product, and they sort of saw our culture from, as a customer and said, wow, I really want to be a part of that. And
That's
so that
exciting.
just feels incredibly good. And, if it takes, hundreds of employees to serve thousands of customers, then that is what we want to do. We want to serve more shops to help them. And we need people to do that. And it's just a lot of fun. I'm having more fun in my career than at any other stage that I've ever had. We feel supported by our team, by Mainsail, by our customers, and there's just a lot of real positive, virtuous cycles that are working in our favor right now.
Well, thanks for sharing that, because not everybody sees, because everybody's doing this climb and it's really hard and it's heads down and it's kind of brutal to get it going and so forth. And then if you've never had a lot of employees and VPs and company building internal stuff, it doesn't always look as fun to people, but to builders, it's a lot of fun. But when you get 100 employees and you have raving fan customers, you get pull from the market. The market wants to have an awesome leader.
Yeah.
Really. They don't, and you get pulled along. Your customers pull you, your partners pull you, the industry pulls you. You kind of get blessed. The market doesn't want 500 bad competitors. They want one good one, and they kind of rally around the good one or, the few. So it's really exciting growth phase, and that acceleration of your culture and customers. I definitely see that flywheel picking up. It's really exciting to do.
It really, really is. It's just very feel good.
Look at you.
Yeah.
That's far from those startup feel bad days where everything was brutally hard and all that kind of stuff. Paul, thanks for sharing your story, and congratulations on your success with ProShop and the team there. For practical founders out there who are deep in an industry and they see the crappy software that they have, and they're thinking about build something, they have or they have the dream of getting over to the software side and having a big smile on their face like you have. What advice do you have for them to think about that journey? Any critical factors to emphasize as
I guess
they're thinking about the journey?
Yeah, it would come down to three things. Making sure you have that product market fit is just so essential. I've seen lots of companies try with a product they thought was going to be well received, but it just didn't quite hit the mark. And it makes it so much more difficult to try to sell something that people aren't clamoring for. Having and like I said, a fanatical focus on customer success, customer service, quite honestly, just, almost to a fault. Like I said, we'll give away free hours and this or that. That's not, necessarily a good financial decision for the business, but it is the right decision to help that customer out. And I think at the end of years, that's going to have a really positive cumulative effect. And then the third thing would be being more process-based from the beginning. I know it's hard to balance process versus just, do it by the seat of your pants and, cowboy it. Anytime you can think about what you're doing in the terms of a process and document it in a way that other people can see and learn from and evolve, just the better chance you'll have to scale with fewer mistakes and less firefighting. So I think that's an important thing to keep in the back of your mind from the very, very beginning.
Well, great. Thanks for sharing that. Very wise from a builder who built physical things. And now you're building, software, a company, and you're literally creating change in the industry that you love. So congratulations.
Thank
Paul,
you, Greg. I appreciate it.
Success. I wish you the best in the upcoming years, the scale years, super scale years.
It's going to be fun. It's going to be a great time.
Awesome. Thanks for being on the Practical Founder podcast, Paul.
Thank you, Greg. It's been my honor. Appreciate it.
Thanks for watching this week's founder interview on the Practical Founders podcast. Be sure to hit like and then subscribe to my Practical Founders YouTube channel to keep up with my weekly videos for serious software founders who are building valuable companies without big funding. Check out my blog and information about my Practical Founders CEO peer groups at practicalfounders.com. And follow me on LinkedIn to keep the conversation going. See you next week.